Morning Joe, you okay? Yeah? No, it's been busy. It's been a good weekend though. Yeah, really good. No, I'm just going to just do a new video. No, you can stick it. No, not you can stick it. That's the name of the video. You can stick it. Yeah, I quite like it. It's catchy, isn't it? No, it's not phoned. No, I told him not to. I told him to phone in 2 weeks. No, I still think he's going to phone this week. I know, he keeps on busting me all the time. I know, he's just full of useful ideas in his own head. No. No, I'll do it today. Finish it off. Should be okay, I think. Now if I can get this one done, might be able to get back to the bench and do some building. I know, people are starting to think that the only thing I do is put videos up. I know, I've got to start building models again, I think. No, it'll be fine. Okay then. Yeah. I'll see you next time. Alright then. Cheers. Bye. Good afternoon everyone, welcome back to The Shed. I hope you're well today. I hope you've had a fantastic weekend and that you're kind of raring to go on some of your projects. Today we're going to look at glues. The 7 glues that you see by the side of me are all designed for model makers. They're easy to buy, but they all operate in a slightly different way. The 3 glues at the front, Humbrol Precision Poly, they're poly cement, and then Tamiya's extra thin, are designed specifically for model kits. So they glue together polystyrene based products. The 4 at the back, these are designed to glue dissimilar materials. So although you can use them for standard plastic kits, you can also use them to bind together ABS, plexiglass, that kind of thing. So although these glues operate in a similar way and they're all appropriate for model making purposes, they do have different properties, and as such they can be useful for different steps along the way to the completion of a model. So what we're going to do over the next few minutes or so is we're going to take a look at each of these glues individually, and we're going to show you how they work in terms of the project that not only we complete here, but also you'll complete on your workbench. I hope you find this useful. As usual, I'll be putting up some more information about these glues on my blog. The address you can see here. I'll also put up some information about where you can buy these products from, so there'll be some links. If you visit the blog, you'll see the links there. Like I say, they're easy to get hold of. Most of these things can be bought mail order or from your local model shop. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope it's useful. It's by no means a scientific study into how these glues work and the chemistry behind their application. It's just what I've seen in the workshop. And also you'll see with one of these products, this one, Mr. Cement, which I haven't used yet, you're going to see in real time how this works and any discoveries that I make along the way. So I hope you enjoy this, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers, bye. Okay, the first glue that we're going to test is Humbrol's Poly Cement. As you can see, this is quite a traditional product. Comes in a tube. It's the sort of thing that modelers of a certain age, myself included, would have used to learn how to build kits with. It's kind of an inflexible material to use, but it does have its uses in the workshop, so it shouldn't be dismissed out of hand. The first thing we do is to remove the cap, and as you can see, some of the glue tends to spill out of the nozzle, so we have to be kind of careful of that before we start. Many of you will remember building kits and getting glue all over your fingers and then getting it all over the model. So if you can keep your fingers away from this for as long as possible, that's great. Now, it's often tempting when you're joining parts together to squeeze the glue out of the nozzle, and then, I mean, this is full of air at the moment, so you just don't even know where you're going to... There we go. So we get some glue out of the nozzle, and then to apply the glue to the model, what happens then? You apply way too much, and you get glue all inside here, all over the outside, on your fingers, all over the bench. It's a complete mess. So if you are going to use this product, and it's very useful to use it for joining large sections because it does create a strong joint, is to get a piece of card like this and squirt some of the glue onto the piece of card, put the lid back on, and then using a cocktail stick, pick up some of the glue and then apply it with the cocktail stick. As you can see, it creates a much cleaner application of cement. Because you're only putting tiny little drops onto the end of the cocktail stick, you're only putting tiny little drops onto the model. And then we take our other piece and join them together. Not like that, try and do it in a neater way. So we join it together, like so. This part's not a good fit. One piece seems to be slightly bent. Okay, we finally got them together. Wow, that's a good fit. So we've joined these together and then hold them. You may well see that some of the glue squirts out between the joint. That's fine, actually, and something that can be used to your advantage if you're gluing together fuselage halves and that kind of thing, because one of the things that this glue does that the other glues that we'll see in a while don't do is it actually dries and creates like a hard kind of crust that works alongside the plastic to almost act as a filler. So glue them, the two parts together, hold them, and then leave it alone. Just leave it to dry out, and you'll find that when you come to sand these joints down, that this glue will help you to create some quite nice smooth joints. So I haven't used tube cement for quite a while, but that's acting really quickly, and it is joining that quite nicely. So I'm sort of impressed by that. That's okay. It's working pretty well, I think. For an absolute beginner, this kind of glue works really well and will allow you to build your models quite neatly. It is, as you can see, it is quite thick. It's sort of like a syrup almost. But I would certainly recommend, if you are going to use this, and a lot of younger modelers tend to, don't apply it, whatever you do, don't apply it straight onto the parts from the tube. It'll end up in just a mess. Much better to put it onto a little piece of card like this and apply the glue from the card using cocktail sticks. As I've mentioned before, in other videos and that kind of thing, cocktail sticks are one of the most useful items that you have around the workshop, and they're certainly useful when it comes to using poly cement like this. So from our poly cement, what we'll do is we'll move on to Humbrol's other product that we'll take a look at today, and that's their precision poly cement. This is a thinner material, and you apply it using a needle that you can see on the end of the bottle here, and that allows neater application of glue. So we'll take a look at that. We'll grab some more parts from our donor kit, and we'll have a look at how their precision poly cement works in action. So our next glue is Humbrol's Precision Poly Cement. As mentioned earlier, it comes in a bottle with a needle on the top. So before we start on the model, let's just make sure that some of the glue is flowing. Now this works in exactly the same way as standard tube glue in that you have to deposit this glue onto one surface of the model and then bring the other part towards it. So that's what we'll do. So all I'm doing is putting tiny little drops on here, trying to keep it away from the edge of this panel. So it's just going onto the flat surface. Little bits of glue. Then taking our other section, I just hold that in place. Hold that in place for a couple of seconds. And the part's now bonded into place. This glue works really well for these larger pieces. I'm not entirely convinced that this would be the sort of glue that I would use for much smaller sections. I think it's a little bit too imprecise. It's quite a thick cement as well. It's very much a halfway house between a standard liquid glue and also one of the tube cement. So this is kind of it's a neat glue. It's perhaps useful for certain applications. If I was to build an entire model, I certainly wouldn't be able to use this. Tamiya's extra thin cement is absolutely my go-to glue in the workshop. This is the one that I use more than anything else. I really like this because it's the perfect combination of a fast-acting adhesive but one that gives me a certain degree of working time. It's also a really good product because it includes this in the lid. This is a really fine brush and allows me to apply this glue to extremely small areas without worrying about it flowing around everything else. It's a really good product. The way this works is in exactly the same way as a traditional glue would work of this nature. So what we do is that we hold the parts together like this, and then using the brush simply paint down the joint and let capillary action take the glue all the way down to the edge of the part. So in this case, from this rib here backwards, there's glue in there and that's holding, and then once I'm happy with that, I then move on to the next section, take some more glue and simply flow it down, hold it for a few seconds until it binds, and then finally we go to the end, put the glue into there, and once again hold it until it binds into place. Now this glue is slightly slower curing than the other glues that we'll see, including Mr. Cement S, which means that you have to hold this for a while and it has to dry out for a while, but once it's in place, then it provides a really good, strong, clean joint. As mentioned earlier on as well, you can use this for joining painted parts together and it doesn't really destroy the paint around those two pieces being joined together. I'll show you how that works. Okay, so what we have here is the intake assembly from an F86 Sabre that I'm building at the moment. Although this will be hidden inside the model, it's a good little example of what's possible from the use of Tamiya's extra thin cement. So we bring the two parts together like this, make sure they're nicely clicked in, and then take some of our glue, get rid of the excess off the brush, and then very carefully just work it around the joint. Turn the part around and again work it around the joint. As you can see from the photograph, this part is now complete and the two sections are joined together with almost no damage whatsoever of the surrounding paintwork. It's a really useful tool to have in the workshop because it means that you can join together sub-assemblies that you've completed using this glue rather than using super glues that perhaps don't have as much tensile strength, and create joints that are strong and also neat and tidy without the need for you to overpaint and touch up any damaged paintwork. It's a really useful tool and a really good material to have on the bench, and I use this an awful lot when I'm completing models because I know that every time I use it I'm going to get the same results. Really good. I'd certainly recommend you use some of this for some of your models. So with Tamiya's extra thin out of the way, let's take a look at Gunsanyo's glues, starting with Mr. Cement, which you may well remember is the glue that we mentioned earlier on that I haven't actually used yet. So this is a test for me as much as it is for you. So we'll give this a go. I'll grab some parts and we'll see how this one works. Having looked at this, I can already see that this is quite a thick material. It's a little bit thicker even than liquid poly, so I think this is going to be useful for joining larger sections rather than smaller detail pieces. So that's what I'm going to do now, and I'm going to test this on a couple of fuselage sections. This is from an F-16. As you can see, there's a nose and a rear fuselage that join together. Just quickly, to make this test correct, let's just remove this part of the runner so that these pieces join together properly. There's no point testing something if the test is skewed by not using the product the way that it would be used in reality. So let's clean this up, make sure that it's all okay. This piece here is okay, so just quickly test fit those. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so I know just by looking at this that this glue isn't going to flow down the joint. So if I was to join these parts together like this and then hope to run the glue over the top, I don't think it's going to work like that. In fact, I'm sure it's not going to work like that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to put some glue on this tab here, and then I'm going to put some glue inside the nose section and around its locating ring. Okay, so once we've got some glue together, I'm then going to bring these two fuselage parts together on the bench. Incidentally, this is one of Italeri's F-16s, and the fit of this is pretty good. So joining it together and holding it as well, you can see inside that there is you see how slowly this glue works. So let's try gluing that back together again. So this adhesive actually gives you plenty of working time. So it really does work like a traditional tube cement. I'm thinking this is going to take a little while to dry. It certainly doesn't allow very quick assembly of large sections like this. I can feel it starting to bind now though. Yeah, that's better. So, but it's taken a couple of, certainly a few seconds to get to that point, but now that it is starting to flash off and the glue's starting to evaporate, that joint's starting to feel pretty solid. But I figured that I would need to leave that for a while before it was fully set. That's okay for larger sections like this. Perhaps not so great if you're working on smaller pieces where you want the bond to be quick. But certainly I can feel that that's quite hefty now. That's starting to feel really good. So this is a useful addition to the workshop. It works in pretty much the same way as the precision poly cement that we tried out earlier on, and gives you a similar level of working time. So these two glues here I think are very similar to each other in terms of property. So you pay your money, you take your choice, I guess. But those two are very alike. I mentioned earlier that these 4 glues were actually designed to be used across a number of different materials. So for instance, you could use these these four quite different materials to glue together ABS, which is what this is. This is a piece of plastruct beam, and also polystyrene, which is what this is. This is some more plastruct, but this is made out of the same plastic that model kits are made out of. The way that these differ is that they have slightly different viscosity. The two on either end, Plastic Weld and Mr. Cement S, are really thin, so you can, if we was to take a small piece of this, rest it on here, and then take some of our glue and just run the glue down the joints between the two pieces. Hold it in there for a second. That is now fixed onto there really solidly, and that's only after a second. It's almost like super glue has held it into place. It's superb. These two work in a different way. Although you can still use them to glue these parts together, the glue doesn't really flow down the joints quite as well. And it allows, it's certainly under there now, but as you can see, it allows quite a time to get the piece into the position that you want it. But once it is in place, then it starts to bind really quickly. This glue is starting to flash off now, and as you can see, it's quite difficult to push the part around on there. These two vary from what I can see in that one is slightly thinner than the other, and that's the only thing I can see different between the two. Now, although these glues are designed to allow different plastics to be joined together, they can be used perfectly well on a standard plastic kit, and they will give you the results that you see here. Mr. Cement S is the second glue that I have on the workbench that I use regularly alongside Tamir's Extra Thin. This glue works really quickly and allows me to join fuselage halves, for instance, together, hold them together, and then within a couple of hours sand the joints. The Mr. Cement Deluxe, I use this for joining wing panels, that kind of thing, and what I tend to do is drop some of this glue inside the panel onto the location points, and then once it's in place on there, I hold it together and then I run Mr. Cement S around the joints, and that way I get the best of both worlds. I can make sure that the panels are together and they're located properly, and that those internal joints are binding before I use Mr. Cement S to lock everything into place. The thing with this is it's so fast acting and it's so strong once it's in place that once those parts are joined, you're never going to break them apart without cutting the joints. That works brilliantly though, and it certainly allows rock solid joints to be created across the models that you're building. Same thing with Plastic Weld. Plastic Weld works in exactly the same way as the other three. Again, it's extremely fast acting. If I can open this up, you do need to grab a brush. So we'll cut another piece of this polystyrene off, just snap a piece away, drop it in place, and then get some of our Plastic Weld and run it along the joint. Take it along the other side, put the lid back on so I don't knock it all over the bench, and then you can see that it's almost like super glue has held that into place. It's rock solid already. I know a lot of model makers who use Plastic Weld exclusively to build their models, and the reason they do that is because it's so fast acting. You can buy this from pretty much anywhere these days. The other products that you see here you can buy online, but you can also buy them from specialist model shops. plastic weld, I get this either from the model shows that I attend or shops that stock Plastruct like this. Great products to have around the workshop, really good. So all of these 4 glues here operate in exactly the same way in terms of their potential to bind dissimilar materials together. The only difference between them is how quickly they dry and how you apply them, really. So that's another good addition to the workshop. So basically what we have now from our demonstration and the parts that we've glued together is that we have 7 different glues. 3 of those glues are designed only for plastic model kits that are moulded in polystyrene. So we have Precision Poly Cement, Tamiya's Extra Thin Cement, and our Poly Cement that we mentioned earlier on. These will only join polystyrene based products. The other 4 that we mentioned earlier, Mr. Cement S, Mr. Cement Deluxe, Mr. Cement, and also Plastic Weld. These are designed to join polystyrene or ABS, Perspex, plexiglass, that kind of thing. So really, if you are going to be building models that are just polystyrene based, then you could probably stick with the 3 that we mentioned earlier, and then maybe pick one of these to give you some greater working time, or in the case of Mr. Cement S, extraordinarily fast bonds. But if you are going to be working in different materials, if you're scratch building for instance, then probably you're going to need all of the glues that I've shown you today to give you the best possible results on your workbench. I hope this has been useful. I hope you've got something from this little demonstration and that you get to try out some of these products on your models in the future. Hopefully you'll join us again next time as well. Until then, take care and goodbye.